Good afternoon. I want everyone to know, and especially all the people of Guam to know, and the voters, that my campaign and I are committed to an honest dialogue of my public service and Michael St. Nicholas's record of public service. In a campaign ad that we released yesterday, this is the text of that ad. After a year and a half in Congress, Michael St. Nicholas stands out for being one of 6 members of Congress that the bipartisan House Committee on Ethics is investigating this term. He also stands out for having one of the worst voting records of this term, missing about 52% of the votes that he could have cast for Guam. He stands out for getting national coverage for himself and Guam on ABC News, the New York Times, Fox News, the Washington Post, and more. The investigation is examining if St. Nicholas converted campaign funds for personal use, accepted improper campaign contributions, filed false reports with the Federal Election Commission, and made false statements to government investigators, improperly interfered or attempted to interfere in a government investigation. Here at home, St. Nicholas stands out for refusing to comment on these investigations and not explaining how he missed so many votes. I believe it is important that Delegate St. Nicholas speak to the specifics of the investigation and not have lawyers issue press releases on his behalf. Delegate St. Nicholas has made many false statements, public statements about my record that are negative as well as factually incorrect. Instead of arguing that St. Nicholas is attacking me, I respond on the record and point out that Delegate St. Nicholas is factually incorrect or dishonest. And I repeatedly have asked Delegate St. Nicholas to agree to multiple debates. He continues to refuse and avoids being held accountable for his actions and his record. And I want to point out that the press release did not refute any dimension of the ad, did not refute one single dimension of the ad. My campaign ad, my press releases, and my public statements communicate to the voters and the people of Guam that Michael St. Nicholas has a lot to explain, and he refuses to do so. As candidates for office, the public and their court of opinion is the arena we compete in, and it is the voters who have the final decision of what issues are important. The Office of Congressional Ethics, which is a separate body from the House Ethics Committee, reviews allegations against House members, office and staff, and when appropriate, not all the time, when appropriate, refers investigations to the House Ethics Committee for further review. The House Committee of Ethics on Ethics agreed the allegations first warranted investigation in October of 2019. This is that statement. This was in October of 2019. Then, after they investigated a little bit more, they agreed in March of 2020 that more needed to be added. Then in June 2020, the Committee on Ethics added additional allegations, which I have underlined here, which I have underlined, are outlined in these 2 documents by the House Committee on Ethics. My campaign asked the question. It's a very basic question. And it's a question that every candidate for public office needs to be asked. Why do they refuse to be personally held accountable or refuse to talk in public? I asked the voters to examine our records. I asked them to do so. You can look at my record. I'm very proud of my record and our plans for the future. And I've outlined some of those plans. The voters deserve a leader who is willing to present himself to the voters and be held accountable. This is the fundamental purpose of our advertisement. We did not try to send it out any other way than put our name on it because it is based on the truth and it contains actual facts. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer any question.
And how typical is it that a congressional delegate or congressperson who is under investigation by is under an ethics investigation to hire the proverbial high-powered legal team from Washington?
Well, he's hired an attorney, and obviously it's his right to do so. But I've never heard of a member of Congress who refuses to talk to the public. And he refuses to talk directly to the people of Guam, and refuses to talk directly to the media. That is the central question of accountability. You present yourself to the public in this manner that I'm doing, and I'm happy to answer any question. I do so willingly. I've done this throughout my whole public career, both in public office and as president of the University of Guam. It's a fundamental obligation for people in public service to present themselves to the public. Michael and Nicolas has refused to do so, and instead, in this particular instance, he's hiding behind an attorney's statement. He doesn't even issue the statement out of his own office. That statement comes from the attorney's office. That's pretty unusual. Go ahead.
Congressman, what specifically do you think triggered this response from him?
I think people are finding out that what his real record is. I think people are finding out that if you listen to the ad carefully, that he has it's not only about the investigation, it's about his performance. He's missed 52% of votes that he was eligible to participate for. That's 160 votes. And there are all kinds of issues related to the people of Guam, ranging from veterans to senior citizens to education, even to coral reefs. And he did not participate in those votes. He did not stand up for Guam. And instead of opening himself to the public, he continues to use social media and little statements he makes on social media, and now attorneys, in order to avoid confronting the people of Guam.
On what issues would you distinguish yourself from him in terms of leadership?
Accountability, openness, willingness to engage the public, willingness to present myself to the people, and also willingness to collaborate with people in Guam. I believe that the fundamental purpose of the delegate from Guam is to fight like hell in Guam, in Washington, D.C. for Guam, but to present as much as possible a united agenda. And that involves talking to everybody and synthesizing and collaborating. That's what I do. I've done that in the past. I certainly did it as president of the university, and that's the kind of leadership I'll provide. But the number one issue here on this day is accountability. That's the number one issue. How come Mike and Nicolas refuses to be held accountable for any of these activities? How come he refuses to explain his missed votes? How come he refuses to engage on the basis of his performance? And now he refuses to come home. He refuses to come home.
The congressman used social media to great success. It won him an election. Apparently, that's what he plans to continue to do. What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with social media, but the people have to ask themselves whether you want a leader who only talks to you in one direction, or do you want a leader who communicates with you, who opens themselves to the public. When I was delegate, I had 77 village meetings in the course of 10 years. He's been a delegate for a year and a half, and I don't know how many meetings he's had because they're not really kind of announced. But that's willingness to, how would you know what the people are experiencing? Every delegate in the House of Representatives is back home, including Delegate San Nicolas Sablan from the Northern Marianas Islands. Only Delegate San Nicolas is not here at home. Why isn't he here? Why isn't he willing to be engaged in a public conversation or even give a speech where he's asked questions? That's the difference. He won't answer questions. Imagine any position of public responsibility where you have a leader who refuses to answer questions, only in ways that are guarded and are one-dimensional. And that's what we have with Delegate San Nicolas. But more importantly, he has to be held to accountable for these investigations. He should explain himself. He should explain his poor performance. And our ads will continue to point out these elements about his public service. And we do so clearly, honestly, and truthfully.
If what you describe as his unwillingness to face the people, isn't that to your advantage then in this election?
I don't know. We'll leave that up to the people. We'll leave that up to the people. But the people should expect a leader who is engaged. And we don't have a leader who's engaged. We don't have a leader who wants to be here. He doesn't even want to be here. What kind of a leader doesn't want to be home when their people are suffering? What kind of a leader is that? That's a question that every voter has to ask themselves. And I hope they ask themselves that in a way that is honest and truthful. Because this campaign stands for the truth. We'll always tell the truth, and we'll always be honest. And that's why we want to provide what I believe is trustworthy leadership for the island.
Congressman,
Yes, sir.
do you have answers to your own questions as to why he's not home and why he's missing?
Well, the question should be asked of him. And the answer is, he won't answer you. So if you ask that question of someone and they won't answer you, they really don't, in my opinion, don't really care enough about you to give you a response. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.